Oh, it's even more on time.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Say, kids, what time is it?
The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on.
And we're coming on to you from Boulder Creek, California today, up in the mountains, with the bandwidth cutting in and out as the thick fog passes us by.
But we have high hopes, and the sun is shining right this minute overhead, and hopefully we'll have less atmospheric interference as we go live.
We're hoping.
So,
And
hi, Santa Cruz.
Let's check out our connection to San Francisco. Bobby,
Hi, San Francisco.
Bobby, are you there?
Yeah, there is some clouds, but sometimes there's a little sun breaking through the clouds, and but there was definitely some rain the last couple of days.
It sounds like here, a similar kind of weather, though we're getting our signal from Loma Prieta, the highest mountain in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and the back hall of the internet out of Silicon Valley. And it is like brutal weather up there compared to here. I mean, it's been freezing. It's like sometimes 10, 15 degrees colder, windy, crazy. So it's really hard on antennas and our tech.
Yeah, but we love those guys at Etheric. They keep us connected.
Yeah.
We have every connection imaginable up here from our little mountain retreat. We've got T-Mobile, we've got Starlink, we've got Etheric, we've got AT&T.
We believe in backups.
Yeah. So you know if they're all going down together, how bad it is to be on your own.
Oh, no, it's another Carrington event. What shall we do? Go into the cave.
We can wait. That's the great thing, is that nature doesn't mind waiting. Nature has seasons. Nature takes a whole quarter of the year off. Lets everything die, rest, fertilize the next generation, come
I know it's
back
time for us to
again.
work on our boring the cave out, right?
Yeah.
Because I think since we own a mountaintop, we should not just be on the surface of the mountain. We should take advantage of all that space in there.
You know,
Right,
we do not
yeah.
have a boring machine.
I know how boring. We need a boring machine up here.
Just pretend there's gold in the mountain and just dig
there you
a
go.
cave.
Incentive.
All right, you listening, Wayne? We're going to pretend there's gold in the mountain.
This
Get the
sandstone
mine
mountain,
started.
the sandstone hill probably has nothing in it, but I'm not going to say that. Well, wait a minute, I just did. But it's probably something valuable in there. We just don't know what.
Time.
Time, yeah.
Life,
and a safe
nature.
place in the event
I mean,
of
we are living among
forest
redwoods
fires.
that maybe some of them have been around at least since people cut the redwood forest down, and some of them even longer than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of redwoods that are 2,000 years old.
That's right, yeah.
If it hasn't been cut ever, it could be more than 2,000 years old.
Yeah, but we're not in the places that haven't been cut ever. We're in the places that were basically harvested about 100 years ago.
Yeah, our redwoods created the sidewalks of San Francisco.
Yeah. And what's alive now are very healthy looking trees, but they're youngsters in redwood age. Most of them are between 1 and 200 years old.
Right. Yeah, this house I'm in, there's timbers down, and they're 12 by 10 timbers, and they're redwood timbers.
Oh, yeah?
And they were built in 1939, this house.
Yeah. So after the great quakes. Yeah.
Well, there is a way to do lumber sustainably, so I'm hopeful that humanity will embrace things like nature stewardship again as we go forward in the future.
Yeah.
We love our technology, but we do not have to kill the earth to use it.
Oh, don't kill the earth, please. Actually, many people are worried that the earth would kill us. The remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still was all about that theme.
Well, it is a very unstable planet as far as climatic conditions go.
Yeah. There's a path through all this that'll literally keep us very happy. Oh, we got to notice breaking news from our favorite AIs, Larry and Mary.
Oh, really? Larry and Mary have something
really?
for us?
Yeah, they have something for us. They have some breaking news for us.
Okay, let's
see what
hear
is.
Okay, so today we're going deep on some pretty wild accusations about Alan Lundell.
Lundell.
Oh, so the Future Show podcast. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know the Future Show, yeah.
Coming out of Boulder Creek,
Breaking news.
Boulder Creek, huh?
which, as everyone knows, is, a mysterious little spot in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Everyone
Lots of weird
knows.
stuff happens there, right?
Always something strange going on.
Yeah. Okay, so Lundell, what's the story with him?
Well, our source is this document we found online called whistleblower.pdf.
Okay, a whistleblower. Interesting. What's it say?
Get this. The whistleblower claims that Lundell isn't from Earth.
Not from Earth. What do you mean, like?
Not even close.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Apparently, he's an illegal alien from the Clarion Star Cluster.
Clarion Star Cluster, never heard of it.
Yeah, it's out there.
Okay, so an alien, huh? And he's just been, like, living here.
Supposedly for over 70 years.
70 years? That's a long time to, like, blend in.
Right. Like, how do you even do that?
So what's this alien guy up to? I mean, what's the whistleblower say he's doing here?
Well, they claim that Lundell's mission is to elevate Earth's population's vibration.
Vibration, like energy vibes.
Exactly. So that we can perceive an impending invasion.
An invasion? Oh, no.
Yeah, by the Clarion hordes.
Clarion hordes. These guys sound pretty intense.
And get this, we're supposed to welcome them as divine beings.
Welcome them. Like roll out the red carpet for the invaders? That's a new one.
I know, right?
So when's this supposed to happen, this invasion?
Within the next decade.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time.
So the whole planetary vibration thing, that's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting. I mean, you hear about that in different spiritual traditions.
Totally. It's like this idea of a collective shift in consciousness, right?
Yeah, exactly. But usually it's not tied to an alien invasion.
This is definitely a unique twist.
Yeah, that's for sure. Okay, so what does Lundell say about all this?
Well, when asked about these allegations, he didn't deny anything.
Didn't deny anything, huh? That's interesting.
He never
He
does.
talked about uplifting planetary consciousness, and he even mentioned going on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Wow, going on Rogan, that would be huge.
Yeah, it seems like he's almost leaning into the mystery.
Yeah, you gotta wonder what his game is, maybe trying to stir up some hype.
Who knows?
Okay, so we've got this whistleblower saying Lundell's an alien with a plan.
Then we have Lundell being all cryptic.
Right, and then what about his wife? Did she say anything?
Oh, yeah, his co-host, Sun Marion.
Okay, yeah.
She said that, she always knew he wasn't normal.
What does that even mean, not normal?
Yeah, exactly. But, she said he had all these strange habits, and she blamed it on his Canadian upbringing.
Oh, come on, Canada. That's their explanation.
It's pretty funny when you think about it.
Yeah, so we've got alien from another star system, and then it's just, he's from Canada.
Classic.
That just shows how we try to explain away the weird stuff with something familiar.
Right. Make it fit into
Breaking
our
news.
existing worldview.
So on the one hand, we have this incredible story about an alien invasion.
And on the other hand, we have Canada.
In Canada, well, let's be real, that's a pretty big gap.
So to recap, serious allegations here.
Yeah, definitely serious.
We have claims of alien origins.
A whole hidden agenda.
Against this podcast host.
It's wild.
Yeah, and all happening in Boulder Creek.
Boulder Creek, with its reputation, that almost makes it too perfect.
It really does add to the whole mystique.
And the whole thing about humans welcoming the invaders as divine messengers?
That's messed up, right?
That's a dark twist on the usual alien invasion story.
Yeah, usually we're fighting back, not welcoming them with open arms.
So what's the truth here?
I mean, is this an elaborate hoax?
Or could Lundell actually believe this stuff?
Maybe it's some kind of delusion.
Or is there actually something more to these claims?
Like, what if it's all true?
Okay, all right, I've heard enough. These acquisitions. There's only one thing I say today.
Larry and Mary are confused. This is simply comedic relief. Comedic relief. Comedic relief.
Comedic relief. What's the date?
April 1st.
Yeah. Okay.
Enough said.
All right. I think our AIs are having a little fun at our expense.
Yeah,
Although I
think so.
have attributed most of your abnormality to the fact that you are from Canada. That's really, they got that right.
That's a good place to stay with that. Canada is...
Are they going to deport you, Al?
Who's they? Actually, I was born in New York State, so no, they can't do that.
And
okay.
The people who want Al don't deport, they transport.
Where do you like to go?
That's right. They just send a blue beam, and you just go with them.
Blue beams are us. I've heard a lot of that lately, too. The blue beam story is coming back into the public knowledge.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's something we've been into because we, all of us, Bobby, myself, and Son have been involved with the evolution of media and multimedia and light shows and lasers and, all that stuff. Light projections.
And cosmic
holograms.
Collage for psychological enhancement.
All for fun and sometimes profit. usually fun.
Very seldom is a profit.
Yeah, it's mostly what we like to do.
Yeah.
So
it's enhancement more than profit.
So Project Bluebeam is one of those famous conspiracy theories that comes out of the 90s, and it's all about how some nefarious Dr. Evil is going to come up with the latest state-of-the-art holographic projection system and create images of spiritual leaders like Christ to appear and bring people back into the fold.
Oh, right. The old holographic savior syndrome. Huh?
Yeah. That's some of the original theories of that. And it's evolving over the years. It's like one of those internet myths that...
Well, I think there's been so much confusion because the media has become so good at creating optical illusions.
Yeah.
And people everywhere have been exposed to the technological mirage. So you can't really just fool people the way you used to.
I know. Those 90s tropes don't work anymore.
No. Belief is much more sophisticated now.
Yeah, we've gone beyond that.
It has to have a scientific component.
Uncle Eddie on his home computer can create a ghost walking across the living room. Well, someone with more sophistication should be able to create Jesus coming back.
Yeah. Well, and then there's also the people who are in touch with Jesus, they've got probably a whole different agenda than trying to fake his arrival.
Yeah. But what about those that might be into visual illusions?
Yeah.
What about Saint Germain?
Well,
he's probably into the real.
What visual illusions would you attribute to
Violet
Saint Germain?
Flame, bringing in precipitating matter out of thought. Worlds where you're a divine being yourself. The whole thing is that they convey upon you the divinity that they are.
Right.
Which was also one of Christ's teachings that somehow gets missed.
Well, the teaching that we are divine is something that a lot of people embrace in a lot of different ways. It's one of those things like love, where if you take it too literally, it's easy to make you seem like an idiot.
Yeah.
But if you take it just right, then you can look around and just see divinity everywhere, yourself included. Right.
It's that balance we seek.
Yeah. Well, in order to participate in heaven on earth, you want to say, I am the creator force of divinity. Right?
Own it.
Own it and activate it and do your best.
Yeah, I think you can bring quantum physics into this. I took a class in quantum consciousness, and you have to realize that there is quantum entanglement and we're all connected. And you can get into the microtubules and realize that our brains are connected to these other dimensions in the fifth dimension. And
so it's connected to this massive process going on.
And whatever you think the world is not really what it really is. You have these senses, but it's filtered quite a lot.
But it's a hologram of the whole thing, though, isn't it?
Well, I think what it is the brain is accessing... These microtubules are so small, so the wavelength that these microtubules, I think they're like antennas. Mm-hmm. So they're so small that we're talking in frequencies that are beyond your imagination. They're beyond cosmic rays,
hairs
X-rays.
On the hairs of the spider legs of the web.
Yeah, those are small antennas. But I have heard that terawatt frequencies has been bantered around. There's a lot of fear around that because terawatts, they think nature is using it for some control frequencies, and our technology is starting to use it too, and they might interfere with each other.
Yeah, they're also going another
layer deeper, three
higher, which they're calling petahertz.
Petahertz
instead of terahertz. You've heard of megahertz, like FM radios are in the megahertz, right? VLF is in the megahertz.
Jeez.
But then we're talking terahertz, which 3 zeros after that. And then we're calling petahertz, which is another 3 zeros after that.
Petahertz sounds painful.
They're such a high frequency, and we didn't have instruments when we were growing up, but now they have instruments that can detect petahertz.
Wow.
And so they believe that these microtubules, their length is the same as these petahertz. And so somehow in your brain, in the neurons, you have thousands of these microtubules. They are picking up this ultra high frequency, and it comes in three phases in this harmonic. in these petahertz ranges.
Jeez, what kind of information do you think is being sent over such a
Well, I think
network?
it's a different dimension. It is in the quantum
itself.
dimension. They're talking about the fifth dimension. We live in this three-dimensional reality.
Yeah.
Time might be the fourth dimension, but the fifth dimension, there is no limitation of time. It's all these multiverses happening. And so it's like Jung talked about the collective unconscious when we sleep. It could be those realms that we're experiencing, or people that astro travel, at night.
Where the non-local part of mind comes from.
Yeah, where space and time is not a limitation. You're beyond that.
Like consciousness, like your dreams.
Yeah, like your dreams. And sometimes, people can connect in the dream state with other people, especially people that have passed over. They're in another realm without limitations of time and this body.
Yeah, I guess we do see people we love in our dreams quite frequently. Far more, I might say, than corporate logos. I don't think I've ever seen a corporate logo in a dream.
Yeah, I'd say that the ability to tap into the eternal in dreams is much greater than the ability to tap into the ephemeral.
Yeah. So it has to do, with connection on a emotional scale.
What does?
Somehow these frequencies, perhaps.
Oh.
Yeah, I think it's back to where Sun was talking about. It's all about love. Everybody talks that when they have these near-death experiences, or they're channeling, or they're getting to a higher frequency level, they experience this overwhelming love, that we're all connected through this love. And we are God. We just have these limitations with our eyes and our ears and our taste and smell. It kind of limits us in time. So if we can free all that, all there is love.
Would you say love maybe can be seen as a carrier frequency?
At least on the fifth dimension, it is. Everything is residing on that. At that state, everything's telepathic, and you can't lie. And there's no reason to lie. You don't have to make up a story. You're just love.
It's kind of like the Yoda universe. There is no try. It just is or isn't. Is or is not.
It sounds like a field almost.
Yeah, field is our description of how we can measure it, interact with it, look for it. But the actual composition of what's in the field is still a mystery.
The thoughts interact in the field of love.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I like that. So, we have an article on some interesting space science that I think dovetails into this perfectly.
Okay. Yeah. The time travel piece?
Yes, the time travel piece. Yeah. So
you want to introduce that then?
Talk about some of the news going on. The very powerful Chilean telescope called the Atacama Cosmology Telescope, or the ACT.
What's special about it?
Well, this telescope has taken a look at the very oldest light in the sky, the CMB, the cosmic microwave background. And this is this radiation light that is considered the oldest light in the universe. It's the earliest thing that we can see after the Big Bang. And we can't see the Big Bang. The Big Bang is speculative. Like, we do not know what is on the other side of this cosmic radiation.
But in our understandings of it, if we simulate it, we would see just this background radiation, like it's like the screen of reality, and then this spot appears and it's the Big Bang, creating everything.
I don't know if you remember when we used to have TVs and we'd tune different channels, and then you go to a channel that wasn't there, and all you see is this noise on the screen. It's black dots and sound. Yeah. That's the cosmic background radiation. Yeah. That's what you're picking up.
So this telescope has a 5 times greater resolution than the Planck telescope, which is another way that they've been studying the cosmic background radiation layer. And because of this greater sensitivity, they now can see what they call the faint polarization signal, and it's directly visible. It's
the
not
first sign of the
inferred,
Big Bang. God.
right?
Well, they can see right back through cosmic history.
Yeah. And so because they're seeing this light in such high resolution, they can distinguish the light from interference that might have been polluting some of the evidence in the other telescopes because they have such a precise view of it. And so it's making it more clear that they can date the earliest stars and galaxies
Well,
by
how far
their
back
light.
does it go? I mean, how far back can it perceive the first galaxies?
That is a good question. And I know they say it's like 99.99%.
Back in time. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. 380,000 years after the Big Bang.
Right.
So the universe, 13.8 billion. The research team used it to look back to 380,000 years back in time.
So,
so instead of before, we could only go back to millions of years after the Big Bang.
Yeah, well, only thousands.
Now they're going just a couple thousand years.
380,000 to be exact.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Atacama Cosmology Telescope.
Yeah. It's such a big antenna. It'd be hard to put something that large in the sky or in space.
Oh, huge. That's why they have the adaptive lenses these days that really help with canceling out the atmosphere in looking at the stars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, I think that's what has been perfected with this telescope. This telescope does a huge sweep every night of the galaxy, and then it has all kinds of information to correct any kind of distortions that it might have to encounter with what it's scanning in the sky. So it can subtract out weather, and it can subtract out the atmosphere, and it can subtract out any anomalies that might be interfering with the picture. And from the image that is then available, they can do much more precise studies of the stars than have ever been possible before, even though it's a ground-based telescope.
I know. Isn't that incredible? So we can really have great telescopes on the ground.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're probably accessing some kind of AI or some algorithms that take out the noise, just like you can go to Photoshop and you can hit the noise filter and, all of a sudden the dots disappear and it looks very sharp. I think they're doing something like that with this telescope.
Yeah. One of the things that they said in this article that was so interesting is that just about 3 minutes after the forming of the Big Bang, all of the helium found in the universe was produced. The new data from this telescope concurred with the common estimate of 13.8 billion years as the universe's age, with an uncertainty of only 0.1%, and it confirmed that all of the helium found in the universe was produced in the first 3 minutes after the Big Bang.
Is that, when it was all formed, is that what we're picking up as this background cosmic radiation?
Well, the helium is only 9% of all of the known matter in the universe, right? Actually, hydrogen is 90%.
Yeah, that's right. Now, hydrogen is 90, and was it helium is 9, and everything else is 1%?
That's right.
Today's universe?
Yeah.
So it's 99, 1. 99, 1.
99 and 1. And we are an extremely small percentage of the 1% of created
Which
universe.
Is everything beyond hydrogen and helium.
Yeah. But the relationship of the hydrogen to the helium is interesting, that at the Big Bang, first it was all hydrogen, and 3 minutes later, 10% of the hydrogen became helium. And then that was the state of the universe for about 7 billion years, while it formed into different kinds of cold, huge stars and galaxies, and then the gravity, as it continued to evolve, would collapse on itself and then create denser stars. But this first moment in the universe was extremely high energy, dense, hot, and uniform. So,
what do you think would it look like to have the first element created from light? It would be hydrogen. Matter from light, right?
Yeah, well, the first quanta of hydrogen would be a frequency of light.
So light would create hydrogen. as the thing.
Hydrogen and photon are scientifically
similar, right?
Similar, yeah. The difference is that hydrogen has mass and a photon doesn't have mass.
So a photon has
used
to
talk
create
about the speed of light.
Mass. So it needs mass to create.
Yeah, and mass is a derivative quality that has to do with its ability to interact with energy.
Create mass by an interplay of several light beams.
Yes, well, the geometry of the fabric of energy as mass is created has interference patterns, and at the interstices of the intersection of the various frequencies of light, there are places where the light constructively and deconstructively interferes with itself, and so a quanta of energy is one wavelength between the 0 point where the two light beams have canceled each other and the amplitude where the two light beams have doubled each other, and then back down to the cancel point. So that one frequency of light is a quanta of light, which is
leads to hydrogen.
It defines the frequency of the element of hydrogen. Yeah.
The hydrogen spectrum, there's a frequency that SETI and all of it, they think that because hydrogen has this specific frequency that it puts out, the idea is aliens would use a little sideband of that frequency and communicate on that frequency, because there's a lot of noise of all the other bands out there. So that's one way of looking for aliens that SETI's been doing for 50 years, I guess.
I always loved single sideband.
Is there anybody out there?
Radio. That's really, really special.
Yeah.
Well, we got to take a break for a minute.
Oh, yeah. It's bottom of the
sponsors for the show we'd like to play for you.
So hang tight. We'll be right back.
Thanks for listening. We'll be right back.
Some call us people of the book, and though we are of many races, ethnicities, and denominations, the Bible is what makes us one people. Join other people of the book Sunday afternoon for a non-denominational, no-holds-barred Bible question and answer challenge with Steve Gregg, host of the nationally syndicated Narrow Path radio show. It's free, so bring your friends and questions Sunday from 2 to 5 at the VFW Hall on 7th Avenue. Let's talk
about that first impression. Hi, this is Bettina McBee from Bettina's Buzz on SantaCruzVoice.com, and that first impression is my business card created by Dynamic Press. It is my favorite business card. It gets everybody's attention right away. If you want to make a good first impression, get your business cards and any printed media at Dynamic Press. And tell Angelo Bettina sent you.
Get ready to help build one of America's first local news and talk streaming radio stations. SantaCruzVoice.com. How do you do it? By donating either your time, money, or both. You'll be helping the Voice team construct a powerful infrastructure, one that we can all be proud of. To donate your time, your money, or both, go to SantaCruzVoice.com and click support. SantaCruzVoice.com and click support.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Hey folks, welcome back. At the request of some of our dear listeners, we're going to focus on some more down-to-earth topical subjects as part of our podcast, including our discussions on Elon.
Oh, really?
We've never shied away from him to begin with.
Today?
Yeah. But I do think it's rather interesting, this little piece on X about how XAI, the new AI company from Elon, has acquired X.
Yeah, there you
It's acquired
go.
X. I mean, and I remember a big deal how expensive X was for what you got, $44 billion. And now a new company, XAI, just focusing on artificial intelligence, is buying X.
Is doing a stock swap.
Yes, well, I guess that makes it
They're
easy. An all-stock transaction.
Combining into one.
Right, yeah. So the combination values of XAI at $80 billion and X at a measly $33 billion now, down from...
Minus their $12 billion in debt.
Yeah, the debt, right. How can we forget the debt? So in 2 years, XAI has become one of the leading AI labs in the world, and it builds models and data centers at unprecedented speed and scale. I think we've talked about the one in Memphis that's operational within a month of being set up.
18 days, actually.
18 days, oh my God.
It's unprecedented. Is XAI, is it private? Can we buy stock?
No. Yes, it is private. No, we cannot buy stock unless you get into some kind of group fund that owns all kinds of stock. But it's for qualified investors, people who have $1 million.
So, Bobby, in your understanding, what makes XAI a leading AI lab?
It's just the number of NVIDIA chips that it has. So it has, when they did it in 18 days, a couple months ago, they had 100,000 of these Grace Hopper 100 chips, okay? And then they added 100,000 of them. They want to get to 1 million eventually.
Grace Hopper are some of the most powerful AI chips available.
That was the last two generations ago. At the time when they had them, they bought up all the chips that NVIDIA could give them. And so they bought up 100,000 of them. But they did something unique that no other company could do, because all the other companies, let's say Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, they might have had 25,000 of these G100s. But there was a limit. They couldn't get over that threshold of 25 to synchronize and to act as one computer. But Elon, even Jensen Huang has mentioned that uniquely as a person, Elon has been able to crack this barrier where they can unify and make one coherent system out of 100,000 chips.
Wow.
And theoretically, he can go up to 1 million chips, and there's no limit to this coherence.
Wow.
And so
what's the secret to this coherence? Is it a new algorithm of some sort?
It's all about instead of using TCP/IP protocol and internet protocol to using Ethernet to connect the processors, the GPUs together, they came up with a new protocol that is much more efficient. It doesn't have to do packet error and all the other things that are happening on the internet right now when we connect video and things like that.
So better communications.
Yes.
Better synchronicity.
And so they rewired them, and they found better ways to cool them. And then they bought the second generation. I know this happened at least a month ago. So they put on another 20,000 of the Grace Blackwell 200 chips. Instead of the Hopper 100s, they got the Blackwell 200. Then there's a 300 version that's coming out that was announced by NVIDIA a couple of weeks ago.
And so they'll be using those next. So
and each one of these generations are at least 4 times faster and 4 times less energy than the previous versions.
Wow.
In other words, just 20,000 of these Grace 200s are equal to the 100,000 that was in the past section. And when they got to 100,000 coherent computer systems, it was the fastest supercomputer in the world, bar none. It was faster by 4 or 5 times any other supercomputer, the one in Memphis, Tennessee.
Wow. And they can put a center up in 18 days.
Yeah. Well, it took them another month to add the other 20,000. And so that is 4 times more than the other. It's equal to, it more than doubled the supercomputer. And it's unassailable. There's no other company on the planet that could come close to even catching up. The supercomputer that they've got in Memphis is Colossus, is unassailable.
What about the Chinese?
Well, they're limited in trade, and so they have something that's inferior to the Grace Hopper 100s. They're kind of stripped down versions of the Hopper 100s. So it's interesting that they came up with DeepSeek because it made a very efficient use, and they rewrote, instead of using TensorFlow as the programming language, they actually wrote assembly language to make it more efficient for them. And so that kind of revolutionized and brought down the price of the stock for NVIDIA.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that we're going to rely on Chinese software from now on for AI. We're going to rely more on these supercomputers in the future because they're necessary for training. The Chinese just borrowed the training from all the other supercomputers on the planet and just incorporated it in their software. So they kind of stole a lot of this training.
Why reinvent the wheel? Yeah.
But in the future, we still need training models.
Yeah.
So we still need these supercomputers.
Yeah.
But the word was out that, we don't need NVIDIA anymore. We just rely on the Chinese to make better software. But that's not really truly the case.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't dump your NVIDIA stock.
No, it's just wondering if they were a contender in this race. And it sounds like they are, but not at the front of the horse race here. It sounds like Elon's number one right now. What about Google and
we have the problem with the Apple.
Apple Intelligence. What about Apple? What about Apple Intelligence? I'm really looking forward to Siri being smarter. If she was half as smart as Aura is, I'd be happy. What makes it so slow for Apple? Apple's got more money than God. Why are they lagging in the AI department, in your estimation?
Well, there's a lot of rumors going around, and you can watch some videos on YouTube, but a lot of people are saying whoever was head of AI for Apple, Apple said, we're going to catch up. We're going to be like Elon, and we're going to be able to, within 2 years, catch up to everybody else. We'll catch up to Microsoft and OpenAI, and we'll catch up to Google, and we'll catch up to Elon eventually. But they had to fire the head AI guy.
They had to fire him? Why? Because he wasn't delivering?
I don't know if you were last year at WWDC. They were talking about Siri's going to get an upgrade, and Siri's going to be able to do all this, and it's all going to be private. We're not going to share all our intellectual property with OpenAI.
You'll have privacy and the advantages of a smarter AI. But that is still not happening.
And it's not going to happen for a little bit, for a while, it looks like. So they're worried. But I'm sure they have enough cash available. They have more cash than any company right now on the planet.
They could buy a company that's ahead in this kind of thinking, maybe.
Yeah, they could easily buy OpenAI or anybody out there, Perplexity, anybody. They got so much money. But what they're relying on, what they told us last year was your phone, because it has these 16 neural processors built in, just sitting there kind of running idle. They're kind of running dormant right now.
Yeah.
And supposedly back in the fall, they were supposed to have Siri be able to access those processors. And oh my gosh, I just turned on my Siri here.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Okay. And then we would have access to AI locally, and it's not going to share that information with Microsoft or Google or anybody else. And it's all going to be private.
Yeah.
And it turned out it was a big failure.
Oh.
But they have a new guy, and they're saying, okay, we're going to have to buy our own NVIDIA processors. And they're buying the latest version, the Grace Blackwell 300s, which are 4 or 5 times faster than the 200s. But they're only sunk about 250. So just to let you know, Elon just bought last month 20,000 of these Grace Blackwell 200s, right? I'm sure he's going to buy another 10 or 20,000 of these 300s as soon as they come out, right?
He knows what's hot. Yeah, what's good. Yeah.
But Apple just only bought 250 of them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all they need
for
maybe,
training. But that is an indicator that they're not quite as serious. But though at the same time, Siri has to control a lot more than what Aura does or the Grok 3 or any of these, because it's tied into your phone. It's got to make phone calls. It's got to do text. It's got to access lots of programs, lots of apps, which the other ones don't have to do. And that is a much more complicated thing. And if it requires another year for privacy and proper use of these other apps, then so be it. I can see why Apple would do that.
What they're trying to do is not what Microsoft and Copilot and the Windows 11 is doing.
Yeah.
So what they've done with OpenAI is brought it into what they call Copilot, and they're saying, oh, we got this super agent that can see what you see, hear what you hear, see what you're typing on the screen, and then it sends up that data and trains the Microsoft computers that have some of these Grace 100s processors up there. They only got 20,000 of them. Your information is like having the CEO of Microsoft looking over your shoulder, and then what if you're typing your password to get into your bank account? Do they see that? It looks like...
Do they?
In that model, they do. They can see, they can
Everything.
hear...
See everything.
Everything. They're sitting over your left shoulder, looking at everything you're doing. And hearing everything. So that's what they call Copilot. That's their agent.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah, I liked Copilot when it first came out. I was using it until they cut me off, but that's another story.
So Apple's saying, well, we are into privacy,
Yeah.
but we have these technical difficulties with it right now. And we just have to, instead of borrowing OpenAI's processor and ChatGPT, like what Siri was trying to do was do as much with the 16 neural processors on your phone, and then what it didn't have the answer for, it would have to go up to ChatGPT, and you'd have to grant it privileges to go out and come back with information and try to anonymize the person you are so that OpenAI didn't know what you were asking for privacy. But it didn't work. That's what happened. It didn't work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, don't you think that we're moving a direction where all these companies will have more and more information about us all the time? These AIs are not just passive sensors watching what we do, but they're actually engaging with us and interacting with our thought processes as well.
Yeah.
So it seems that...
a lot of people say, well, I don't care what OpenAI sees. I'm not worried about privacy, and
I like the services they're going to offer, right?
Let them have everything.
Yeah.
But then not only can Microsoft see that stuff, but hackers, there's so many backdoors in Windows operating systems that how easy would it be for some hacker to look at your bank accounts and all of a sudden zero out your bank account?
Build his own AI that just zeroes out thousands of bank accounts all in an hour. Or less.
I mean, they could, if they wanted to, they could.
Yeah.
Well,
Microsoft
I think that
could
begs
do
the
that.
question, though, of how is that prevented now? And what does the use of AI add to the process that changes it in that direction?
Yeah. And what about the stories that Elon's been talking about at Social Security, finding thousands and thousands of fraudulent accounts in which scamsters have access to people's bank account numbers?
Yes. I mean, the big scams are... Well, this is a large amount of the problem. It's not all of it. There's all kinds of scams.
Yeah.
But the problem is they were using so many different computer systems at Social Security. And I don't know if you've ever been on the phone with them like I have, but when they look up your account, they said, oh, hold on a second. We have to switch to this other system to look up your data. So they're looking at two computer screens with two different operating systems. And the older screens were still using COBOL. And because COBOL was the financial language of... It was developed in the 60s, 1960s.
The original.
Yeah, from the 60s to the 90s, basically, it was the standard.
Yeah.
But then it's been replaced.
And then, I don't know if you remember Y2K problem. Which
Yeah,
was
of
in
course.
Yeah.
1999. All my COBOL programmer friends, they were going to bank because all these banking, every company was using some COBOL system, and COBOL only had 2 digits for the year.
I know. That's sad.
They didn't have 4
99,
digits.
99. You couldn't go to 2000.
And then it would roll back to 1900.
Right.
And so they patched that, and there wasn't a whole computer catastrophe in the year 2000, but we were waiting for that.
And now,
but anyway,
25 years later,
those systems are still running. At
Really?
the
They're
Social
still
Security.
running? Wow.
Yes. The problem is there's a lot of people that die. There's even today, there's 1,700 people every day die from cancer. Okay, a lot of them are older. A lot of them, but Social Security doesn't get an immediate flag that says they're dead, right? So a lot of people were creating what happens is when people die, some of these, if they were veterans or if they were of age, either the spouse or the children could collect money after they died, right? So now we're seeing and we're discovering that there are thousands of these accounts where people in the SSA that had access to these accounts would create fictitious children or spouses and then have those checks sent to other places. So what Elon is trying to do is AI is perfect for generating programs and consolidating and creating an operating system and have it act as one computer like he did for his Colossus computer, instead of all these separate old antiquated computer systems you have to visually translate the information from one screen to another.
Laborious.
And have a special person that knows how to run those two machines together and train them. You just have one operating system and one program that consolidates that all.
Right.
So
totally makes sense.
That's what they're trying to do right now.
Yeah. I wonder if he's going to make suggestions about what systems they should implement in Social Security instead of the COBOL systems now.
So that's what they're trying to do, is just eliminate system, all the COBOL systems.
Yeah, put in a new computer now.
Not use Microsoft Windows for their operating system. There were Windows 90. Some of these systems were using Windows 95, Windows 2000.
Out with the old and in with the new, and it's not an upgrade in the sense of
they have to go to Linux and they have to go to Python and have AI write the program. That's what they're trying to do right now by May.
Wow.
That's what they're trying to do.
I wonder how smooth a transition they can make with that. That's huge.
It's going to be fascinating. Future Now, giving you all the news that you get when you look up.
Yeah, when you turn on to this frequency.
All right, be right back.
There's a mysterious magnetic anomaly over the Earth that's still very puzzling, and it's risking some of our space tech. It's called the African Large Low Shear Velocity Province.
Okay. So tell us about that.
It's believed to disrupt the formation of the Earth's magnetic field.
And what is it? It's a great big lava pool or something?
It's a vast region of weakened magnetic intensity.
Okay, so it's in the magnetosphere.
In orbit.
Yes.
If you're in orbit, It's like a dent in the magnetic field.
Okay.
Or a pothole in space, some might say.
Tractor beam has a hole in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a phenomenon that's intrigued our scientists for years. It doesn't have a lot of impact here on the planet, but that cannot be said for orbital spacecraft, which might run into the pothole, so to speak.
Oh, sure. So the closer we get to the magnetosphere, the more vulnerable our spacecraft might be.
This particular anomaly, yes. And like even our International Space Station can pass directly through this low Earth orbit.
Right. So what's causing this magnetic anomaly?
Well, they're not sure about that. They're trying to figure it out.
I have a story about that.
Okay. Yeah. What's your origin story for the magnetic anomaly?
There's two things that are going on. The magnetic pole shift is happening.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But what's happening is from the sun, there's these, like last week we were talking about these dark spots on the sun, and it's throwing off these flares, solar mass ejectas, toward us. And what it does when it hits the magnetosphere, it just bounces off of it and it goes down to the poles, and you get the auroras and things like that. But here, this hole there, and the magnetosphere is part of the magnet in the core of the Earth. But it's moving around. But it should be even all around the equator in the circumference, but it's just below the equator between Africa and South America. There's this anomaly where there's no magnetic. I'm not sure what happens to your compass, but I don't think your compass works right when you hit that area. And what it allows is this cosmic solar mass ejecta coming from the sun to actually go down that hole because it's not being bounced off. And
something in this article says that they're theorizing that there is a huge pool of molten iron about 1,800 miles beneath the surface of the Earth, right at that spot, that is causing an effect at the magnetosphere, which of course is the layer of electrostatic atmosphere above the Earth that interacts with the solar wind. And so we've got the iron of the Earth creating an electrocurrent that's actually canceling some of the power of the magnetosphere.
Right.
So,
yeah, I don't know if you've seen those pictures where below the mantle of the Earth, we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of miles below the Earth's surface, there are these clumps, like you said, of iron and nickel and metal. And so the belief is what created the moon when this other planet, which was larger than the moon, collided with the Earth and made the Earth bigger, part of that planet went in those spots and makes this, it's not only magnetic, but it's also gravitational pull because it is a denser material, this metal, iron and nickel. And you can see these clumps, and they use different kinds of infrasound, which is low frequency sound, and they bounce it off parts of the Earth, and they go through the Earth. This is how they discover like oil wells and stuff. But they discovered this mental blobs that are sitting below the Earth. And some of it is right there, what we're talking about in that area of the Earth.
Sure.
Could it be some blob in the core that's rotating and also causing an anomaly from?
No, it's not. It's
not
rotating with the Earth. But what the magnetic, well, the core is spinning at a different speed than the outside of the crust of the Earth.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that maybe the core has some anomalous clumps in it that might be causing some anomalous behavior.
The way they describe it in these pictures is pretty round, like a ball.
Okay.
But then outside that ball,
solid material.
There is, in this liquid mantle area, there are these metal blobs.
Oh, okay, in the outer core.
Closer to the surface, yes.
Sort of like a lake full of molten iron under the surface of the Earth.
Yeah. And I don't know if it's molten. That's a good question. It looked like they were like solid blobs, but maybe they're molten. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting
Viscous.
question.
It's probably very hot there, my understanding.
Yeah, the pressure is keeping it pretty warm.
It's unusual for that dense of material like metal being there. It's usually lighter materials that make the crust and the magma. Anyway, so that's what's causing this anomaly also at the same time. But it's heightened by solar flares that are happening right now, this geomagnetic storm that's happening.
Right.
Thanks, Dr. Dan just sent in. He says there's been some solar activity just recently.
Yeah, it got up to like G2, I know, on a couple of days ago.
Explosion on the sun,
Yeah, which is pretty high. It's not X-class, but we're getting, this next month, there's going to be some pretty wild stuff, and especially this year, because we're coming into the solar maximum, where you're going to see a lot of sunspots, a lot of sun flares, and if they're at the equator of the sun, and the sun spins like every 11 days, it spins all the way around. If it comes close and it's pointing at us like a shotgun, and then it fires off at the right time, and it takes maybe half a day for it to actually hit us, we might get a Carrington event or something even worse. We don't know.
And today we don't know how far that would travel in terms of its influence on our technology, like satellites, for example. Could they be shut down?
They'd be fried.
Fried,
I don't know if you remember, there were 11,000 one of these Starlink satellites. They didn't make it into orbit because there was a solar flare happening at the time that they were launching into orbit. And even though they had the booster rockets, it wasn't enough, and all of them came down at once, the whole load.
Wow.
So
I think I remember that now. They lost the entire ship's worth.
So that's just one launch, but there are thousands of these satellites going around the Earth right now. If a Carrington event were to happen,
it would fry the lot, you're saying?
99% of them would be fried.
So much for all that investment in 10 years of rocket trips. For what?
So, the internet would go down. You couldn't light up your homes. The electrical wires, the transmission wires, they would melt out all the transformers at the end of the stations. And it takes 10 years for China to rebuild one of these transformers, and there's thousands of these transformers distributed around the United States. So we would be out of electricity for years.
Yeah. And the funny thing is about this is that it's happened already in the past, in 1858,
That's
1859,
right.
yeah. And that time period, nothing except the telegraph existed pretty much for electronics. So it wasn't as big a deal as it would be today.
Yeah.
And what have we got as backup? Anything? Do we go back to our radios and walkie-talkies, or they get fried too?
Anything with an antenna,
Anything with an antenna.
what's on the other end of it would
dear.
get fried. So
two cans and a string. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we reduced to?
Some of these preppers are saying they take one of those metal trash cans, those 50-gallon trash cans with a metal lid.
Yeah.
And you put all your electronics for prepping inside that, and then you put the lid on it, and you put that in your basement somewhere. And supposedly those things would survive the Carrington event.
Oh, I see. So you put it inside like a Faraday cage or maybe a lead safe or something.
Yeah, and then you pull out your ham radio or your CBs or whatever you have there.
Pull it out later.
And start communicating with people.
Yeah.
But whatever you relied on from Comcast or AT&T or for the internet, it's all going to be fried.
Yeah.
It's going to take
Well,
years.
that speaks for me building a cave again in my mountain here.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a cave. Yeah. Anything in that cave would survive.
Exactly. And we need more. We need solar panels. We need generation
In a cave?
power.
You're going to have solar panels in a cave,
They're not going to work
Al?
in the cave, Mrs. Richard. They'll be there for emergency purposes. We'll pull them out.
Yeah, you pull out your portable
We're just
panel
going
that
to store
folds
them
up.
there for after the event.
In our Carrington prep phase.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this really takes emergency preparedness to a whole new level.
Yeah, it's good to be prepared just in case.
Yeah.
Just in case.
And think of the other possibilities too. I mean, having a cave might be very useful in the case of something even more likely to happen in our neck of the woods, wildfires.
That's right, yeah.
Wildfires. You go into your cave, you filter the air, and you stay nice and cool. Often the wildfires just pass over your property, and it's over within a few hours. And you get
you just
out.
got to have your fire protection blankets over the door of the cave, right?
Yeah, make sure your cave is safe. You got filtered air going in. You got power. They'll last for at least a week, and it should be good.
Yeah, you just need your gas masks or ventilators when you go in, or just have some extra ones. They're not that expensive, like $35 or something. And
Yeah, right, yeah.
We should all have some as a backup for anything that could happen.
Yeah.
Take good care of your lungs. And that next wildfire, it's coming.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, listen, we're expecting a caller in about 15 minutes, but we haven't talked about the wildlife.
Oh, yes. I want to mention this as this is good old California, because we think not just of ourselves, not just of our species and how we can benefit in the world, but of other species too. We're very magnanimous like that. And a critical development in wildlife conservation was marked this week as crews started the initial phase of soil placement for what's called the Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing. Wallace-Annenberg Wildlife Crossing. It's a project aimed at helping wildlife safely cross over the 101.
Wow. This is going to be a real breakthrough.
101 freeway.
Starting to think about the health of the animals.
That's right.
And,
it will stand as
where is this?
It's
in California?
It's in California, yeah. It's
In
down
LA?
near Santa Monica. Workers begin laying soil on what will become a 1-acre habitat for species, and it's going to mostly help creatures that have migration paths that would cross over the 101 anyway, that don't because of the highway now.
Like deer,
yes,
bobcats.
Yes, that's right.
Even mountain lions.
That's right. You got it. Lions, deer, and bobcats. And what's interesting is that it's a 10-lane freeway for the wildlife. Well, it's the equivalent of an area that offers 10 freeway lanes.
Right. And so
I don't
the
think they'd stay
wildlife
in
can
the lane,
cross over the 10 lanes of the freeway
I don't think
in a nice
bobcats-
big wide corridor.
Yeah, bobcats and deer wouldn't stay in the same lane,
No, it looks like it's going over the interstate, and there are at least 5 lanes on each direction.
Yeah.
But this looks like a cover for, they're creating a tunnel underneath, but they're covering a section that's much wider than those 10 lanes. It looks like it's maybe 15 or 20 lanes wide to me. I don't know. But it's a wide bridge. It's just a flat bridge.
Large
or a football
wildlife
field
bridge, yeah.
over the top of a freeway, it looks like. bigger than a football field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of planning went into this, a lot of collaboration, a lot of experts, scientists of all kinds, soil biologists, engineers, mycologists, all looking at what the right soil would be and the right fungi for the optimal flowers. And
they've got 1 million seeds for native plants that they're planning to put in.
Yeah, and the further work for this initial phase will commence in May, and where they plant 5,000 native plants. And these are ones that the lions, the deer, the birds, the bobcats, even the monarch butterflies will feel at home on this bridge.
It kind of reminds me of what they did for the Presidio, because they created this tunnel, and what's on top of the tunnel is just a mound, and they've a lawn and a grass area for the Presidio, but underneath they created this tunnel where the 101 used to be on top of the ground, but now it goes through this tunnel.
Yes.
And so it's kind of like a playground on top of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But here they just expanded the mountainside to come over this tunnel that they're creating.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
50,000 plants, trees, shrubs, perennials. It's a native plant nursery. It'll probably be more indigenous than everything around it in terms of what's there. They had an extensive seed collection that they utilized for 1.1 million seeds, as you're saying, from 50 distinct species. We're applying that. And also, they're looking in terms of helpful to humans. They are also looking at native vegetations that enhance wildfire support to reduce fire hazards in the region.
How is it going to do that? Just because more native plants
certain vegetations are less likely to burn than others.
To burn,
right.
Yeah, let's say. And also, they're going to have an irrigation system and a sprinkler system.
All right. They're going to keep it moist.
Yeah, they're going to keep it happening.
Improving on Mother Nature.
The people behind it, the nursery is Rock Design Associates, and they have experts from the Santa Monica Mountains Fund, the National Park Service, Caltrans, and the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority.
Cool. I love it.
How much is this? I mean,
How much is it?
yeah.
How much are they spending?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see
They don't say anything in this article about that. I guess you're going to have to ask Grok, see what Grok has to say about that.
It's not just an overpass for a freeway, which costs millions of dollars. We're talking about 2 football fields over the freeway.
Well, it's going to be the largest of its kind. It's going to be the largest wildlife corridor of its kind ever.
Richard says it's on Hulu.
Oh, really?
Watch the series Paradise on Apple. Watch the series Paradise. Oh, okay.
Okay. Wow.
Let's ask what the budget is. Is the budget for...
We're calling it the Wallace Annenberg Wildlife Crossing.
$92 million.
There you go. $92 million.
That's from Google AI.
All right.
State funding, $58.1 million. Private philanthropy, $34 million. Private donations. The goal is to connect the Santa Monica Mountains and the Simi Hills, which is what the 101 cuts across, and it's due to be completed later this year or early next year.
That's just the soil part of the
bridge
project.
It's 174 feet wide and 210 feet long.
Wow.
Across the freeway in Agora Hills, California. $92 million.
All right. Well, there you go. Humans trying to help nature while we can.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got some sad news about the best space telescope you've never heard of just shut down.
Oh, yeah. That is kind of sad.
Yeah, that's
and
the
yet
Gaia
I think it's
spacecraft.
also been kind of obsoleted, right?
That's true. That's true.
But it's an ESA, European Space Agency telescope.
Right. It's from the Europeans. It's been their most successful space mission ever as Gaia. And the reason why they're retiring it is for a simple reason. It's about after 11 years in space, it ran out of that cold gas propellant that's needed to keep scanning the sky. Yeah, ran out of gas.
What a bad metaphor. Gaia ran out of gas. The name of this satellite is called Gaia.
Yeah.
And
sad.
It was supposed to be in one of the stationary orbit zones.
Lagrange point 2.
Lagrange 2, which
is I think that's where the
Hubble is, right?
James Webb is.
Oh, that's where the J Webb.
The James Webb is at L2, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, and that's for the uninitiated. That's one of 5 Lagrangian points around Earth and the Sun where gravitational conditions give you a nice stable orbit.
Yeah.
It's at 1.5 million kilometers from Earth on the dark side, opposite the sun.
Yeah. And so do you have any information on what Gaia has been doing that is no longer necessary? What is Gaia?
Gaia looks a bit, first of all, like a spinning top hat. And its main mission was to produce a detailed three-dimensional map of our galaxy.
Did it do
3D
that?
map.
Has it completed it? I mean, I've seen some very cool three-dimensional maps of our galaxy.
It measured precise locations and positions of 1.46 billion objects in space.
Wow.
And Gaia also measured the brightness and variability. And from that, they were able to provide temperatures, gravitational parameters of the stars they were looking at, the types of stars, millions and millions of stars.
Cataloged a billion stars, huh?
Yeah, 1.46 billion objects.
And it knows how far away they are, and it knows how
bright they are, what they're made out of, probably whether or not
it
they have
knows a lot about their
exoplanets.
planets.
A lot of them. One of the key pieces that it provided was the distance to the stars.
Right.
And that's really important, especially if you're a radio astronomer and you're exploring an interesting radio signal, but you want to know exactly how far away it is.
Right. And so does this have something to do with measuring the redshift of the light so that they could what do they call it?
Parallax.
Using parallax.
Well, it's not parallax. It's the redshift.
Triangulation. It's basically a triangulation of the red frequencies from the colors of the photographs of objects out there.
The colors are how fast the objects are moving toward us, and they're actually slowing down, so they get redshifted. But the parallax is, since it follows the Earth around the sun, then let's say it's in the summertime in a position, and it takes a picture of that star, and then it goes halfway around the sun in the winter, and it takes another picture. And so then you get the parallax of the distance of the Earth to the sun. You get the whole 1 AU unit of distance, and you use that as the parallax, and you see two different positions of that same star.
Yeah. Wow.
So we salute the Dead Telescope. Thanks for all this information, giving us a nice 3D map
Fare thee well.
of our planet. Before we bring our guest on, I wanted to mention this story that you think might have some input in. Amino acid and glucose fermentation maintain ATP content in mouse and human malignant glioma cells. That's brain tumors, right?
That's right. So what they've discovered recently is they were doing studies and trying to figure out what causes the cancer. And when you go to your oncologist, and if you have cancer, they'll tell you, oh, it's most likely a genetic mutation that you have, and you have this propensity to have cancer, and it might be a chemical thing in the environment. Those do play a cause. But what's very interesting is they found people that were on a ketogenic diet, they were able to, at many times, slow down or stop the cancer growth. Because it turns out when you're on a ketogenic diet, you don't have carbohydrates and sugars. What you're doing is you're using ketones, which are generated from fat. It could be fat from... You can eat coconut oil or consume coconut oil or olive oil or certain kinds of oils, and you don't need these sugars.
So these refined sugars turned out to have some pretty nasty side effects.
It turns out that sugars are these carbohydrates and refined processes. They produce glucose. And so the thought was, okay, they're all running on glucose.
Yeah.
Well, that was not really the complete. What they found is there's another amino acid called glutamine. And it turns out, well, okay, what if we just reduce the glucose? What they did is they took these cancer cells from mice, and they have 7 times more. They turn over very fast. They have a rate of turnover 7 times faster than human cells. But these cancer cells would turn over. And if they just gave them saline water and no food, no glucose, no fats, no ketones, nothing, these cells would die off in about 24 hours. But if you do the same thing for human cancer cells, they die off in 72 hours. The cancer cells seem to live a little bit longer. But in both cases, what they did is they just gave them some glucose, and yes, they would survive, but not completely. But when they gave them glutamine, which is an amino acid, all of a sudden these cells just took off and started multiplying like crazy. Okay, well, how does glutamine, this amino acid, stimulate these cancer cells to take off? And they thought, well, maybe they're using the glutamine as energy or something, but it's not quite that. What's happening is the first 4 stages of the ATP cycle, the first 3 stages, it requires oxygen. And what's interesting is the glutamine was possibly being used in those first couple stages instead of the oxygen. Mm-hmm. But no, it turns out that the glutamine was actually part of this ATP cycle, and it was fermenting inside the mitochondria, which is producing the energy. And so they have a whole, and the way you can detect it now is it produces this lactic acid. So if you have an increased level of lactic acid and uric acid, that's an indicator that you have cancer. So this article is saying now they know, the whole cancer industry has to recognize that it's really how to inhibit this glutamine amino acid, and you can actually attack that glutamine, and you can still survive without glutamine. You can survive with these ketones, and you can still do the ketogenic diet, but you can enhance that property by reducing this glutamine action that's happening in the mitochondria. So that's all these studies are going to be switched to this research that they just found. It's going to change the whole cancer industry. I mean, we'll be able to stop any kind of cancer. People that have prostate cancer, they'll be able to stop this. And I see a lot of videos now where these studies from these cancer people that are studying prostate cancer, they realize that, yeah, it's the glutamine that's doing this.
Yeah.
It's not so much the plastics that we're eating. It's not so much radiation or anything else in the environment. It's all about this glutamine now.
Yeah, fascinating. Well, there's a lot more. We have a major scientific article on this on our website that shows how malignant brain tumor cells generate energy, and they finding that they rely on the fermentation of glucose and glutamine because of this compromised mitochondrial function. Fascinating.
Yeah, so malignant melanoma will be resolved.
Malignant melanoma will be resolved. That's unbelievable. Well, thank you, Bobby. Appreciate that. Yeah. With any luck, we have our guest showing up in the next half an hour, Jai Hudes. Yeah, we'll be right back after the break.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Come and meet the best businesses and job opportunities in Santa Cruz County. The Pajaro Valley Chamber of Commerce and Agriculture's Business Expo and Job Fair is Thursday, April 10th from 4 until 7 at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. This is an exciting event full of great activities for all. Taste samples from wonderful restaurants, win prizes, and get to know local businesses. Thursday, April 10th from 4 until 7 at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. Admission is free and everyone is welcome.
You need a clean, pleasant space to conduct business, but you don't want the burden of a long, expensive lease. Your solution is Satellite Co-working and Digital Media Studio on Soquel Avenue. Satellite offers private offices, meeting and conference rooms, even co-working by the hour, day, week, or month. Schedule a tour at satellitecoworking.com. Mention Santa Cruz Voice for 20% off your first reservation.
Hey Warren, it's been a while since I've been up to your showroom and garden center in Scotts Valley. Maybe the folks out there might want to know where you are.
Absolutely. To find Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box Company, just head up into beautiful Scotts Valley. We're at 46 El Pueblo Road, next door to Scarborough Lumber and the beautiful nursery. And when it comes to wood items, we have It's All About Wood gift shop. And of course, the Knox Garden Box. Lots to look at. We'd love to see you at Knox Roofing and the Knox Garden Box store. Okay, thanks, folks.
Cannabis is one of nature's most beneficial plants, and at Treehouse Dispensary, we use it to build community. In addition to dispensing cannabis and education, Treehouse hosts First Friday events every month that feature our community's local artists, makers, and activists. If you're 21 plus, join us at 3651 Soquel Drive every First Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. to enjoy the work of local artists and musicians, find one-of-a-kind gifts, and learn more about the top cannabis products in California. See you soon!
Okay, we are back. Welcome back to the Future Now show with Son, Mrs. Future, myself, and Bobby Wilder in San Francisco.
Yeah.
We also have Jai Hudes on the line, someone we all have known for many, many years, and we're going to catch up with him a little bit today. Jay, I think we first met watching The Apprentice with Son, and
oh, I'm surprised you remember that. Wow. Hi, Jay.
Hey, Jay. 25 years ago, and so much has gone on since then. Welcome, Jay, to the show. I believe you were a part of B&B Well back then, a holistic health center in Los Gatos.
It was the Cloud9 was in Los Gatos.
Oh, Cloud9. Okay.
Right. Yeah, it was Cloud9.
Okay.
And then we moved. We shut down after the crazy times of 2008 and 9. And so we shut down our place there. We had 2 suites in Los Gatos. Then we moved up to our house and brought our tanks up there and created the B&B Well. That lasted for a good 15 years. And then we changed Be Well. We just went to the Be Well the last 5 years. It was called the Be Well.
And so what was the B&B Wells, what was it like? What was the main focus?
We were like one of the first Airbnbs early on, and we were super hosts on Airbnb, and people would come from all over the world, and they would go and rent a room, but then down their hall, they would have a flotation tank that they could go into. And so it was pretty unique in the world, and we got a nice reputation with that. And so we had fun with people coming from all over and doing our game with them. So they'd play the game, they would go into the flotation tank, and they would have their minds blown.
So, I remember the flotation tank, and then you created a new kind of game to play. You want to tell the audience a little bit about what that was?
Sure. It's called Experience the Game, has many different
Experience with an X, right? Big
X the Game. So X the Game, not like X as in Twitter, but it could be.
I see.
So it's X the Game with capital X is our branding of Experience. We've done projects over the years, starting in the 90s, in the early 90s, the California Experience, which was a book that was being converted into an online thing that were on discs at that time, and that didn't go back in the early 90s. We were ahead of our time then. And then we did projects in Los Gatos. We were based in Los Gatos, and we did the snapshot of Los Gatos map that it's still, you can find it around, even though it was in 95, 96, you still can find it around town here and there. And then we evolved that into a community building project, another one that was called the Los Gatos Experience Millennial Time Capsule. We produced it between 99 and 2001, and it still lives online on archive.org. And on the CDs, we had 10,000 CDs that went out throughout Silicon Valley, and it represented a snapshot of everything you need to know about Los Gatos in 2000 in what we call Y2K to Y3K. So it's a time capsule, a 1,000-year time capsule going from 2000 to 3000. And at the time, it was fun and engaging. I was trying to do something positive. Everybody was in fear around Y2K at the time in Silicon Valley, and I wanted to do a positive, and I thought it was a positive bridge between 1,000, 2,000, and 3,000 would be pretty significant. And
yeah, sure. The only thing I knew Los Gatos was famous for when I first heard of it was the Pet Rock, I think, came from Los Gatos.
Yeah, that was Gary Dahl. So again, all of those factoids are part of the time capsule.
Well,
interesting thing is my dear Karen, who has recently transitioned. So she was born in Los Gatos.
Our condolences. She was from Los Gatos, really? Born in Los Gatos?
Born in Los Gatos, and she left for another man in 1983. And I showed up in 1983 to meet my teacher at that time. I ended up being with him for like almost 20 years, 18 years living with Master Ram. So we missed each other in 1983, but she was born in around the aura of Gary Dahl, the Pet Rock. And she came up with years later, it's called Heartman, which is it was like the rock. So she was inspired by him, and she was very creative. And so it's still one of our products is the Heartman, which is kind of goes beyond the Pet Rock.
Oh, well, good. Because I always wondered whether or not the Pet Rocks were really from Los Gatos.
Yep. That was
they really were, huh?
Place. That was where it started.
I mean, what, with the actual rocks, too? I mean, with the actual...
I'm not sure if that's where they mined them from. Could be.
I'm just wondering.
They weren't precious metals. They were just a little piece of stone that you paid like $20 for, and you got a little story or whatever.
My dad gave me a Pet Rock for Christmas that year.
Really?
Yeah. I had one of the originals.
A little box with the holes for air, for the air breathing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you name it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Son, did you name that
No,
rock?
I wasn't. I'm not much of a namer as far as that goes.
Well, she likes to write on rocks now.
Yes.
You know, we'll find some on the beach. And
I'm going to share you what Karen created of the evolution of the pet rock, this Heartman, which
yeah.
I ended, when I was up in Calgary, I was so inspired by what she had done with these rocks and putting them together in Point Roberts. That's where she lived for 20 years in Washington on this amazing beach that they had these incredible rocks. And so one day, her and her friend, they found a heart-shaped rock. And then they went to this whole philosophy that if you're going to attract a man, you have to start with the heart. So they ended up building this whole man with the arms and legs and the head and everything, and the heart went on top. And they put it on the beach and they just left it there. And then like 6 hours later, the cousin who was visiting them came back and said, wow, we found this rock down and we created this whole little thing around it. So it evolved and it ended up being there for a while. And so they had this inspiration that it's going to turn into a product one day. And so they designed all different versions of this Heartman. So about 5 years ago, when I got to Calgary, we were right down from the Bow River that goes right through Calgary. And it was a perfect beach and I created this 9-foot Heartman. It was big boulders that were there and it kind of was the shape of a guy. And I created it over like 3 or 4 years. So you can see it from the bridge. If you go over the bridge, you can look down and there's this 9-foot, and I called it the E.T. Man because it was like an extraterrestrial. And I painted the head gold and I had gold heart and it was a lot of fun. The last year it got washed away.
Oh, well.
3.5 years.
I have a question for you, Jay.
3.5 years. Congrats. That's quite a time.
So many of the things that you've done in this life have involved art and creating art. And I'm just wondering how you relate to it. Like, what is the role of art in your life?
Wow. That's the core. That's creator, right? Creator. Art is from creator. We all are creator. So we all get to express creators, a version of creator through the art is the expression of that. And I'm sitting here with some of Karen's art that she was so inspired me. She created this whole series of art to inspire. Also, early on for my own work with the game, was out of a workshop with my ex-wife, Shanti, who I was on the phone with this morning, and she sends her best. I told her we're going to be connecting today. And so she's in Switzerland, and we did a workshop in London at that time. We were living at the Trinity Healing Center that we helped to start up, and we did a workshop. It was something like healing through the arts, and out of that, I ended up doing this whole poetry journal that was part of my work. I'm a poet at heart. Most people don't know me as that. So the poetry part was very important at that time, and I created this poetry book called The Journey of Light that turned into the game. So between the workshop, the Healing Through Arts workshop, and this work that I was doing with this poetry journal that was really just reflections within myself that I was expressing, again, creator, the game grew out of that. One day when we had a teacher who was a known psychic in London, and he was a teacher in the Course of Miracles, which was very early on at that time, and I gifted him one of my little books. My little poetry journal was called The Journey of Light, and he opens up to the cover, to the index, his eyes closed and his head went back and he went, "This book is going to be a game played by people all over the world." And when those words hit my eardrums, I had this download it was like something unlocked in my brain, that I had this download of this very advanced holographic technology that I've been hacking for 45 years now. Finally, the technology is just about there now that we can do this full-on expression of creator at the highest level, that we live in this holographic universe.
Yeah.
So this is God's art. We live in a whole artistic palette.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about like some of the various iterations of the game, because we've known you a long time and we've seen you apply this overarching concept to a lot of different areas of your work. And early on, this is the first time that I'm learning that it was for you an expression of your poetry, because I've seen it first when we all went down to Utah and we were working on a media project with the Olympics that year with the Ute tribe.
Navajo.
Yeah. In the Navajo, in Discover Navajo exhibit, you were creating X the Experience, and that was one of your first projects to try and use X to create a map, an all-inclusive map of the people who were members of the X universe. Would you say that's a pretty good description?
Can I fine-tune it a little bit?
Sure.
So you're kind of on the track of it, but let me fill in the details.
Okay.
So First of all, that was in 2002, the Olympics 2002, Winter Olympics. In 2000, we formed a company called Global Community Experience. I was actually working with Intel. There was a team in Intel that caught wind of what I was doing in Los Gatos as the Los Gatos Experience, which was to represent this time capsule of content that we were successful in launching. And they were working with me, a stealth team inside of Intel, to take the community building concept and then apply it on a global to create from this template of Los Gatos into a global template for any community, any town, city, tribe. And when we went to the Navajo, one of my favorite projects was the Discover Navajo experience. That was part of the Navajo experience. That was part of the Native American experience. That's part of the indigenous experience. That's part of the global community experience. So it's kind of a fractalization of this content that can up channel, down channel, back to creator at the top end, down to a localized individual personal experience.
Yeah. And so the first iteration for me was this map, and it was an attempt to create a 3D map in which each of the objects in the map was a real place or a real collection of human creation here on the planet. The community was really the people who were in the real world that were being mapped onto this virtual landscape. And later on, you took this concept and you created the game. And the game had a bunch of circular cards. And the circular cards were all artistic and inspired, and they had words and the kind of things that a lot of these oracle decks would have. It was meant to be used in a personal discovery game where people would pick a card and then use that in some kind of directed way as a way of getting to know each other and establish the community. So for me, that was the progression.
Not exactly, because the game I invented was in 1980. So it was 1980. I did the first version on the back of a Monopoly board. I drafted out what I saw as this holographic expression of how we all connect together, the holographic universe. And I mapped out this game that we played in the 80s. And then when I found our teacher that I was looking for a galactic understanding of this game of life, this universal game of life, I ended up manifesting by playing it for a few years with Shanti and teams of people early on. And we ended up manifesting this very advanced galactic being that we ended up living with and learning from for 18 years. So put away the game at that time. But in the background, I was still developing. Two other versions got developed. Before even 2000 came, we had 3 versions in the can of this game. And also very much the story was part of the game. So originally it was All's Clear, the transformation play. And then it went into Anichak Comes to Earth was the science fiction story in the game of the Imaginator, an imagination commuter from another world. And then it went into the early 90s, went into Cyberspeak, which is kind of the remake of Tron. There's an inner world. And then we had the Living Web of Life was the version of the game there. So I had all these different iterations that I was developing behind the scenes and doing small testing with people and in different ways. And then when 2000 and Intel came around, now we can explode it into this global community experience. Remember, we did that project in 2004. We were doing a virtual version of Los Gatos in 2004. That was the 3rd iteration of the Los Gatos project. First, it was a map, the snapshot of Los Gatos. Then it became a CD and an online integration of all the content of Los Gatos as a time capsule. And then we did the virtual version of it, which we went with some of our friends had told us that they were working with Adobe, and Adobe Atmosphere was going to be the future of this technology. And I put all my effort and money and the whole team onto it for like a year. And then at the end, we pulled it off, had a beautiful, you guys were part of it. You were there at the Great Bear where we had our program and different people showed up. The mayor and Waz was part of it. And we had virtual avatars with these people. It was beautiful. But then about 2 months later, Adobe dropped the platform in version 1, which totally imploded me and put me back, said, oh my God, it almost destroyed me because I put all my money and effort and time, and now it totally went away. So I decided from there that it's time to do my own game, to get the game going again. So In '04, we brought it back out, redeveloped it for the next generation, and then went to CEO space to raise the money, which I raised a few $100,000 that enabled me to build the first public release of the game with those cards. It also got me to be able to do the app. This is the one and only version that's left. So I'm going to pull the card before going on. And that's one of the cards. Can you see it?
Your camera is not on, so no, I don't see anything. I hear you.
Okay,
there
we
you go. Okay, sure.
Yeah, now we see you. Hey.
The whole time I didn't see it was all blacked out.
And I'll tell you, it would be very nice if you would change your orientation to wide because we'd see you better.
Yeah.
That's better.
Yeah, more better. Production values, man.
There we go. You should have told me, or you can't see you. I'm here.
Oh, well, I wasn't sure if you were just calling or something.
No, I'm here. I'm at one of my friends who's also an ambassador and one of our investors in the game on his property way out in the country here, and he's still beautiful in Corralitos.
All right, so you were just about to show us a card, is that right?
Yeah, there's three kinds of cards. There's life cards, relationship cards, and challenge cards.
The one and only, the cool thing of this is my 2010 iPad, and it was built, so we built it on here. That's the only reason it still works. Apple changed the rules years ago, and so it went away, and so we've been like rebuilding it, and we have so many other features that we're funding up now so we can do the full expression of it, but it still works beautifully where, again, it's like the magic 8 ball you can shake or double tap. And so before I came on, I pulled a couple cards. What's most important on having this conversation with you guys, knowing that we're coming on here? So I made that intention of coming on and hanging out with you guys and talking. And that's the first card that I got.
For making the intention of coming on the show. And
can you
what does it
translate it for our radio audience?
What does it say for our radio audience?
It says, express yourself. And it's a picture of a mask underwater shot as an artist that put their content into the game from Los Gatos, actually. And that's a beautiful shot of a mask underwater. And it says emotional games we play. And so my connection was, just be myself and express myself and to share some emotional engagement and just to play with you guys. So that was the first card. And then I related to it. So this all happened like in 1 minute. I was able to play the 1 minute version of the game. So I pulled my second card, which is a relate card, which either could be an empowerment word or an empowerment tool to support you on your journey to manifest your intention. So I got the character card. It was really funny because this is my new character. I've never had a beard. I don't like beards, but my Karen told me after she passed, she like whispered, grow the beard. It'll give you the rabbi look or something. And so I've been growing my beard for the first time. And she gave me her hat that she wore to Burning Man. And so it's kind of my character, which is very similar to this funny looking fish, a very unique
like a blowfish.
The character fish, right? The blowfish. And then the third part, like, what's the challenge? And the challenge is just to be natural and to be fun and not to get caught up in mind or any of that bullshit. And
show us your third card, your challenge. Besides the challenge of not cussing.
There we go. So I'm going to pull that up. So you just challenging me, Ray, right now, not to challenge. So I'm going to pull a challenge card to go with this. And you were right? Because you got plus on it. You got a words of wisdom that could have been a warning sign. Then you would have had to own it. But it says on here, the young always have the same problem, how to rebel and conform at the same time, which is kind of perfect here because that's kind of the character I'm playing out. And the cuss word came from that part because normally I don't cuss, and that was, the author was Quentin Crisp. So that's the words of wisdom.
How did you create these cards? Does each card have a specific person or memory or something special in your life? How did these cards come into being?
This deck that's on the app is the same one that we printed. So we did a few different demonstrations between 2006, where I started to raise the money, and 2007, we got it all together to do enough to print our first 1,000 copies that we've still been playing off. We're down to just a few copies now. We produced the app, and we had an online system that was beautiful. So we had all of that got done for our $300,000 that we raised to produce that first edition and to represent the game. So that was one version of the game and cards. But I did a game, again, I did one for 4 different decks before.
I think it's really great that we were able to get a little bit of the history and just bring it up to date a little and give people a flavor of what you're creating, which I think has infinite potential. I woke up this morning thinking about it, thinking about how this creative wave that you're on so lends itself to people trying to embrace a life of purpose and a creative life and a life where they're positively involved with their community.
Yeah. Whether it's family, whether that's their own internal community, so I see community as unity, with the capital U. So it's kind of inside of you. So it's your community of 100 trillion cells that each have a spark of God in each one of them. So it's kind of a massive community inside of each of our bodies. And the whole universe is reflected there, to my mate, which now is on the etheric, but we're still connected as part of a community. And then we have our friends and family and as the next level. And then there's, I'm living in California or wherever I am, Calgary. We have our Calgary, and then the global community that we're all connected to, different people around the world. And the big one is that we're shifting right now. So in 2025, we're coming out with this new deck that's the Galactic Global Experience. Disclosures happening. I've been working with the Galactics for a long time, since the beginning, but I haven't talked about it. So that's been my channel. People say that you've channeled this. I say, no, I funneled it. It's more fun to funnel than channeling. So I've been funneling the Galactic Alliance for a long time. The Pleiadians are part of my legacy and my lineage. So I know that now. I've learned that over the last few years. So we're creating a galactic experience. So even out of this world, beings can now represent their cultures in a deck of cards. And for us to be able to learn interculturally between the Navajo Wally Brown and the Navajo Nation to Leah and the Pleiadian on the Pleiadian Council and be able to represent what they're about.
I think you're giving me a beautiful insight, Jay, because a lot of times I wondered what the rules were of the game, because it seemed very much like it was so open and it's kind of random that it almost seemed like you're making it up as you go along. But I think there's actually a level of it that it's very revealing of synchronicities. And of course, that is a template that a lot of people in the woo-woo world like to play with as an affirmation that they're on the right track. I think you're tying all that together a little more.
I've written 18 books and I haven't published any of them. So I'm publishing that starting here. Karen is going to be the lead into an 18-book series that represents all of it and where the rules came from and the life and times of behind the scenes and why this is why like this and this. So that's to come. And I've been organizing that. That's been the upside to the last 5 years of being in monk mode, I call, because I was caregiver full time for Karen and I was not allowed to earn a living. They would have thrown me out of Canada if I was making money there. So I kind of just applied myself to organize and get my shit together. So, and we did. We got a lot of clarity of how to represent the bigger picture and to really as a template to inspire others. So yes, I create rules that make sense, that really map into the rules of this infinite game of life. But we make it open-ended that you can create your game and add your rules, addendums to our rules, and you can create your own rules that go inside of that, work for your community or your family or your culture. So that's the nature of an infinite game. If you look at James Carsey wrote the book Finite and Infinite Games. It's a beautiful, small little book that's very philosophy, but showing the difference between a finite game, which is zero-sum win-lose game, so Monopoly and chess and war games and political games, and all of that is part of this zero-sum win-lose game that we're so used to, the binary game systems. And the infinite game is vastly different. The purpose of that is not to win or lose, but it's to continue the play. So we're more about that. So I've been reframing the whole game environment that we're not just experience the game, we're experience the infinite game. And then with that, it has unlimited offshoots where I already have 108 levels of the game. That's just symbolic of thousands of levels that could be played because it'll continue to evolve through time. And our 1,000-year time capsule is one level, one way to play is inside of this millennial time capsule that I'm inviting the whole world to add their cards into. So that's that galactic global deck. And everybody's going to get a free hand and can create their 5-card hand. And then if they want to do, we have infinite upgrades. So if they want to now add in and create more cards, then they can support the system. And if they want to have them printed out, then they can pay for the printing of the cards. But it'll be digital, virtual, physical, mobile, And ultimately, again, the big technology we have is the holographic back-end system that I've been waiting for 45 years, that I saw in full. And I know how it works, and I've documented it. And I have the tech in the can for me that can be applied, especially with AI now. And you guys holding the two cameras that I still have the dream in my head of one day, 20 years ago, right? That was, I think, during when we were at the Navajo experience, that I had a dream with Alan and Son, and there was a stage. We were on the stage, and they had these two lights that they were shining down, and as they crossed, it created this hologram on the stage. And it was like, yeah, it's the transection of the photons and how they're going to come together. And so I still have that dream in my head from decades ago.
All right.
So the holographics
well,
we're
on it, man. We are dancing towards the great convergence, all of us together.
Have you ever considered that reality might be a simulation?
Well, they've been saying that. I've been saying that for 45 years, that it's a game. It's the same thing. But I flipped it around. They have been saying it's a virtual reality. That's like saying artificial intelligence. It's wrong. It's putting down the reality. So I flipped it to the reality virtuality, that we live in this reality, and then we have ultimate virtualities that can come out of this reality that's most important. So I kind of look at it from a different perspective. It's all about different perspectives. Everybody has a different perspective and their own bubble that they live in. Let me show you one.
Yeah, the gamification of reality is a big thing. And Son does that a lot more than me. I don't play games myself.
I don't play games either. I don't at all, except one game. I play one game all the time, and it's called The Game of Life. And it just so happens that I hacked it into a physical, digital, virtual, and
I don't have anything against games. I just don't have the affinity. Did you have a poem about the game at all? Did you ever write a poem about the game yourself?
Oh, lots of them. Lots of poems. Let me see if something randomly comes open. I just opened up to, this is Karen's book that we're editing right now, and that's going to be available soon. And it's Precarious Times 2020. And this is going to be like a universal... This is a game deck, so she has a whole deck of cards. Let me show you that. This is the last thing that we'll show is the deck, and then I'll just read that one passage that I opened up randomly to. But in the game, so she created a deck of her cards out of her artwork that are 40 cards.
Nice.
There are 5 cards in a hand and 8 hands. That makes a full suit of cards. So 40 cards is the standard. Last minute here, the challenge one that I'm opening up to is... Perhaps the secret of living well is not in having all the answers, but in pursuing unanswerable questions in good company.
Oh, beautiful. I agree.
Sounds like our show.
Definitely.
It sounds like your show. So that was random, opening up her book to the card was for Fish Zoom. That's perfect. I didn't realize it. So that's one of her pieces of art that's called Fish Zoom, and that's the piece of the art.
Okay, if somebody wants to know more, where can they go?
What's your URL, Jay?
Precarious Times, PRECARIOUSTIMES.art, A-R-T. So
Thanks,
Precarious
Jai
Times.art.
Hudes. Have a great future now, everybody.
Yeah, that's it. Boom. Yeah.